I refused to let my stepson return home without punishment after he ruined my daughter's book collection. My daughter Mia had been collecting first edition fantasy books since she was 12. Not the expensive rare ones, just special editions from her favorite series that she saved up birthday money and allowance for. She had about 40 books lined up perfectly on these floating shelves I installed in her room, organized by series and publication date. Every weekend she'd dust them with this little microfiber cloth and rearrange them if needed. It was her thing. My stepson Kyle is 15, 2 years older than Mia, and honestly he's been testing boundaries since I married his mom 3 years ago. Nothing too crazy, just typical teenager stuff like leaving dishes everywhere and blasting music at midnight. But he had this weird thing about Mia's books. He'd make comments like, "Why do you need so many books about dragons?" Or, "You know they make movies now, right?" Mia would just ignore him, but I could tell it bothered her. Last Tuesday I came home from work around 6 and found Mia crying in her room. At first I thought she was upset about some friend drama or homework, but then I saw her bookshelves. Every single book was on the floor. Not just knocked over, but actually torn apart. Pages scattered everywhere, covers ripped off, spines cracked in half. It looked like someone had taken a baseball bat to them. Kyle was in the living room playing video games with his headphones on like nothing happened. When I asked him what happened to the books, he shrugged and said, "I was looking for something and they fell. But the way the books were destroyed, there's no way they just fell. Someone had to physically rip them apart." I asked Mia what really happened and she told me Kyle came into her room looking for his phone charger, which was weird since his charger was different from hers. When she told him it wasn't in there, he got mad and said her books were taking up too much space in the house anyway. Then he started pulling them off the shelves and throwing them around. When some of the pages tore, he kept going and actually started ripping them on purpose. I was so angry I had to go outside and walk around the block twice before I could even think straight. These weren't just random books from the library. Mia had spent almost 3 years collecting them, and some were signed copies she got when authors came to the bookstore downtown. The whole collection probably cost around $400, which might not sound like much to adults, but for a 13-year-old who saves every dollar, it was everything. When my wife got home from her nursing shift that night, Kyle immediately ran to her crying about how I was being mean to him. He told her I was threatening to kick him out, and that I loved Mia more than him. Classic manipulation stuff. My wife wanted to just ground him for a week and make him apologize, but I said absolutely not. This wasn't about being sorry. This was about deliberately destroying something precious to his sister out of pure spite. I told Kyle he had 2 choices. Either he could get a job and replace every single book he destroyed, or he could stay at his dad's house until he figured out how to make it right. My wife thought I was being too harsh, but I wasn't budging. You don't get to destroy someone's prized possession and then just say sorry and move on. Kyle chose to go stay with his biological dad, probably thinking I'd cave after a few days. His dad lives about 20 minutes away, and honestly their relationship is pretty rocky, so Kyle usually avoids staying there too long. But 3 weeks went by, and I didn't hear anything from either of them. Meanwhile, Mia was still devastated. She'd go into her room and just stare at the empty shelves. I offered to take her to the bookstore to start rebuilding her collection, but she said it wouldn't be the same because she'd collected those specific books over years, not all at once. She was right. After a month, my wife started getting pressure from Kyle's dad saying he couldn't keep Kyle indefinitely, and that we needed to work something out. Kyle apparently wasn't doing his chores there and was being disrespectful, which sounds about right. My wife begged me to let him come home, saying he'd learned his lesson, but I wasn't convinced he'd learned anything except that staying at his dad's house sucked. So I told my wife Kyle could come home under one condition. He had to get an actual job, not just promise to do more chores, and use that money to replace Mia's books. All of them. Until then, he could stay where he was. Kyle finally called me directly, which surprised me since he usually went through his mom. He was crying and saying he was sorry, and that he just wanted to come home. I told him the same thing I told his mom. Get a job, replace the books, then we'll talk.